what's happening, guys? It's Mark back in the workshop on Mark's Aquatics. Right, on today's little episode, you guys have asked for it, so we're going to do it. I'm going to make a super cheap budget shrimp tank from start to finish. Okay, we're not going to have any cycled media, we're not going to have anything like that. It's going to be a long process because these things don't just happen overnight. Things take time to build up, nitrogen cycle's got to take place, all that good stuff. But if you do it right from the start, you're going to have no problems throughout your shrimp keeping. Okay, you're going to get a really good little breeding colony going, and everything's going to be all tickety-boo, and you're not going to have any problems. Okay, we'll talk about water parameters and stuff like that a bit later on down the line, but first of all we've got to set up a nice little tank. Now I've got a small little tank here down on my bench, which is one of my breeding tanks, which I think I bred the rams in. I'm not sure, could be that one. It's only, I will give you the dimensions of it at the moment, but it's only just over a foot long by about 8-9 inches wide by about a foot high. Not very big at all. So I'm going to use that for the tank. So basically all you guys are going to need is the tank. You're going to have to sort yourself out a little lamp. We'll talk about lighting as we go along as well. A little sponge filter, a little air pump, and if I haven't said it already, a heater. That's all you're going to need. Okay, and obviously the shrimp later on down the line when we get to that stage of putting stock in. Okay, but first of all, what we've got to do is we've got to go to my local little woods, which is just around literally up the road from me, not even 10 minutes walk, and we're going to go up there to a little river, and we're going to find ourselves some nice little stones, some little bits of substrate, stuff of that nature that we're going to bring back. Okay, and we're going to put that in the tank and make that all look nice. We're going to boil it up, making sure it's all nice and it's safe. And so what I've got here is I've got my little bucket full of tools. I've got a sieve, good old plastic sieve there, nylon sieve, and a little fork for digging stuff out. That's all we're going to need. A little bucket of tools like that in my old Saki Akari balanced koi food bucket, and we're going to shoot off up into the woods. So without further ado, let's get up the woods and go for a mooch. It's freezing cold this morning, so I'm all wrapped up warm. So let's go and find some stuff up in the woods. See you in a minute. Right, okay guys, we're down by the riverside here on the River Taff in Cardiff, which runs all the way down, right the way down to Cardiff Bay. Absolutely beautiful down here, it really is. But you've got all the way down here, it's miles upon mile upon mile of riverbanks. It's quite low at the moment. You can see all these pebbles all around here, and if we get down close to it, as all these pebbles get washed around, you get this lovely fine ground up sand. And I thought I was going to have to dig down a bit further for it, but we've had a right torrent recently, and it's been digging out in the banks everywhere else here, and it's dug out some really super fine stuff down to this coarse sort of medium, and we've got the larger pebbles around here that we can take a little pick of. And there's some really nice ones around here. We'll try and pick some little bits of ornate stuff we can find. A lot of them have been washed round, obviously, because they're river pebbles, but some of them that are a bit more stuck in the bank that haven't been rolled around as much, we can get some quite nice little stones from there. So I'll just show you what I mean about the finer stuff as we go up. You've got all this stuff here. This is all going to have to be seriously cleaned, but it's not a big issue to do that. But then as we come further up, we get this stuff here. My shadow out of the way. Look at that. That is super fine stuff, really fine. And I like to use this in shrimp tanks because, for one reason, is any food that you put into this is not going to fall in between, okay, and get hidden away from the shrimp. So it's all the food particles are going to stay on the top, and they're going to find it all that way, and your pollution levels are going to stay a lot lower. I know a lot of these buffered substrates that we can use, and I use myself, which I've had from different companies sent to me and I've used in the past. They're very good, but some of the grain sizes I find quite big, and the food does drift in amongst them. Hello. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pick up some of that, some of these rocks in our little tub there, which we've got. A couple of pebbles, all from nature, all free. I know I'll probably have the Green Welly Brigade after me saying, oh, you shouldn't take stuff from here, you shouldn't take stuff from there, but you've got to think of it. All the rocks and the pebbles and things that you see at your down at your pet stores and everything else, they all came from somewhere, and normally it's from a place like this, and someone's making money out of it. So this way you don't have to spend money on it, you can get it for free. Mother Nature supplies most of these things for free if you go out looking. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but we're doing a super cheap one, so that's how I'm going to be rolling on this little episode. Okay, we're going to do everything as super cheaply as we can, so anybody can start a little shrimp tank off and have a thriving little community of shrimp in their dorm rooms. If you're into your university or in your dorms or wherever you are, offices, you can have a lovely little tank made up, and you can go out with your kids on a weekend and enjoy yourselves finding all this stuff as well. You can find little bits of wood. There's tons of wood up along the side of the banks here, which has been river washed, and it's quite pretty as well. So I'll see if I can find a nice piece of that we can put in there and put a bit more decor in there. We've got some plants at home anyway. I'm lucky to have some plants, but plants aren't that expensive when you go down to your local shops and you just want a few, and within time they're going to grow. There's no point going down to a shop buying tons of plants to make it look completely finished already, and within 2 weeks you're cutting it back and you've already got thousands of little cuttings which you could have used from the first one to replant it, and you save yourself some money that way as well. But we'll get into all that good stuff as we go along. Okay, but right now I'm going to look for some good little stones, grab some of that sand, and then I'll see you back at the house. It's absolutely beautiful down here today, absolutely beautiful. Look at that river all flowing down, all the autumn leaves coming down the river, the odd rise of a little trout just coming up having a go at the leaves as they go past. Absolutely beautiful. If I'm lucky I'll see a kingfisher. You can see how high the tide has been, the river has been. If you can look at the back side of that bank there, all the rubbish and the leaves, sadly, that does get washed down the rivers, is probably around 8 to 9 feet up the bank. So probably two weeks ago it would have been up the top of that bank near enough there. Look, you can see where it's left all those horrible old plastic bags and things. And if you look down there you can see that river mark along the edge there, how high it's been. So I'd literally 2 weeks ago I'd have been underwater here, and the winter's coming and it won't be long before it rises right up again. So I'm going to get busy and I'll see you back in the workshop, and we'll carry on with this little build. Right guys, we are back in the workshop. Here's the tank I'm going to be using. Okay, it's about 13.5 inches wide by about 13 tall. Obviously the water doesn't come right to the top. By 9 inches front to back, which works out at around 24.8 litres. Here's the wife for the coffee. Thank you very much, love. Lovely stuff. Look at that. That's what we like when we come back out of the cold into the workshop. Very nice, thank you. Right, what we do now, yes, 24 points. Sorry, I was off the going off on one there. I normally do that, you've probably noticed. 24.8 litres that tank is going to be, roughly. That's empty, so don't forget, when you've added your sand and your rocks and everything else, as you guys will know, when you add things into water you end up displacing that water, which makes that water rise. Okay, so always do a water test with a small tank. What I tend to do is always fill it up with a jug out of a litre or 2 litre jug, 2 litre bottle of water once all your decor's in, and that will give you a really accurate reading of your literage in there. Okay, for medicating in the future or anything like that, you can jot it down in a little book, and that way you'll know exactly how much treatment to put in. And I do that with all my tanks. There's no point taking just the dimensions that and that, and then you've got 4 gallons of displacement in there with a huge Aquascape in any tank size, not just that, but any sort of size tank, and you're not going to be right in your medication. So there's a little tip for you: always add the water afterwards. That's what I do. Right, we've found some lovely stone. Look at that, down on the river. You can see it's been slightly river washed. That one there, that one I thought was quite funky. It had some lovely patterns and lines on the top. That will sit nicely in the sand. Don't want too much in there. And there's a nice one there, which has got all various meteorite looking aspects to it, and holes and little bits so they can go crawling around in, and that's going to be quite nice in there as well. And we've also got a big bucket of that lovely crushed stone sand from the riverbed after that big wash down we had, and there was literally banks of the stuff everywhere. Now if you dig up, that's why I always take a sieve with me, quite a coarsish sieve. Then you can actually put some of this in the sieve and riddle it out in the water in the river itself. So you're like your gold panning in a way, and you're just sieving out all those fine bits, and you'll end up with a bucket like this as well. And you can keep the stuff that falls through, obviously you keep, and the coarser stuff stays in the sieve, and you chuck that away and then scoop a load more in there, and you'll end up with a bucket full in no time at all. And you've got the river, like I say, you can pretend you're panning for gold. It's great fun, it is. Get your kids doing that. So we've got sand, we've got our stone ready to go in, but now what we've got to do is we've got to clean all this lot up. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest you do is go into your kitchen, boil up a few kettles. It's very, very simple to do. Get yourself a bucket and then pour boiling hot water, okay, all over these, and make sure they're submerged, and leave them soak, and then put some more boiling water on the top, and that'll leach out anything that's in the stone, in the surface of the stone, stuff of that nature. Okay, so I'm going to be doing that with these, and with the sand, okay, because it's been washed out, I'll fill that up with boiling water. Now that's going to kill any bacteria, that's going to kill any nasties that are in amongst the sand that have survived that water. Okay, so that's going to be all clean. So once we've done the stones and once we've done the sand, we can add that then to the tank, okay, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to shoot off now, get all this stuff done. One thing I will suggest, guys, never ever boil stones, okay? Never put that in a big pan of water and boil it. Some of you might be thinking, why don't you just boil it and keep it boiling for a while and boil the sand? You can boil the sand, that's fine. If you choose to do the sand, you can boil that if you like. Sand is fine, but with stones you may have an air pocket inside there, okay? And now that temperature in that stone is going to rise and rise, and there is a chance that if there is an air pocket in that stone, it could explode, okay? And you don't want bits of stone shards flying in your face, because it could blind you. So whatever you do, never boil stones, okay? Because you never know if there's anything hidden inside. It's like if you've lit a fire on the beach and you put your stones around the fire like that, and you light your fire in the middle, you'll hear pinging and you'll see bits of stone flying off, and all that is that's the heat getting into them stones. That stone will expand, and then you can get some really nasty splinters, and even minor little pops can really blow it apart. Okay, so be super careful if you ever do that. Well, don't do that. So that's done, but like I said, you can boil the sand. Sand is fine to boil. If you want to do it that way, that's fine. I'm going to boil the sand, I think, because I can speed things up for you. I've got a big pot in the kitchen which I use for all manner of things, so I'm just going to chuck that in there, soak these in water. I'm not going to go too mad because they've been washed by the river for thousands of years, but I'm giving them a good scrub, boiling water on them, and let them just sit in that really hot water. The stone will take that boiling water heat from them pretty quickly, and it will soak into them. That'll kill any bacteria and rubbish on them, so we can go from there. Right, I think you've got that stage, so now I'm going to come back when all that's done, and we'll go from there, and we'll put some stuff in the tank. Right, okay guys, all that work's been done now. So I boiled the sand, I put it back into this bucket now. Okay, that's still nice and warm in there still. The stones have now been treated in the hot water. I've done this a few hours back, so they've been soaking for a few hours, and I've just come back in here now. As you can see, they're still wet as they've cooled down in the water. I've given them another good scrub just to make sure all the little bits of loose stuff has come off, and you'll see the colour of the water will change quite a lot, and you might get a little bit of scum on the surface of the water, which is all the rubbish coming out of the stones. Okay, so now they're done. Now what we've got to do is we've got to put our sand into the tank, which is always good fun. Lighting wise, all I've got here is I've got my one of my little IKEA lamps. These are made for a hydroponic system. They're about 30 quid. And I find they are absolutely amazing. They really are good. I've just literally glued mine onto another piece. Sorry if I blinded you there. another piece of acrylic, okay, so then it sits on the top there and it recesses inside. Okay, you can do that with some silicone onto a piece of wood. Okay, that will hold on there nice and fast, or some grab adhesive or something like that onto a piece of wood if you want to use that way. Or you can use any manner of lighting you like. It is completely up to you. I find though with shrimp tanks, lower lighting is better. If you want to keep higher light plants, you're gonna, you know, higher light plants, you're gonna get all, you know, you don't have to get into the CO2 stuff and all that. But I like lights. These have been grown. These lights have been focused on and engineered to grow plants hydroponically. Okay, so they're quite strong lights. I've only used this light on this tank for the time being because it's nice and bright and you can see what I'm doing a lot easier, okay, than the other lamp that I'm going to put on later on, which is all it is an under cabinet lighting system which you can buy. I bought mine from Lidl or Aldi or somewhere like that if you're in the UK. If not, if you're in the US or anywhere else in the world, get down your local sort of DIY type shops, bargain shops, and you'll find these under kitchen cupboard lighting systems that you can literally just glue up underneath. They run off the mains, very low wattage, easy and cheap to run, and they got a nice little switch on them, and then you can put a nice little timer on it to have it coming on and off for those daylight hours that you need. But like I say, we'll get into that as we get along. What we're going to do now is we're going to add some substrate into this tank, and then we can think about how we're going to set this up. Okay, right, all I've got, guys, is a little clay pot, and I'm just going to use that as a little shovel. Now the river sand that we get here, which is wet, as you can see, it's quite dark, which I like. I love a dark substrate for shrimp because it really makes them pop. Okay, you put light coloured sand in, you know, I don't, you know, you don't really get that. If you put white sand in there and yellow shrimp, they don't really look as good. If you put dark substrate yellow shrimp, it really does focus your attention on them. It really does. Now I've got stacks and stacks of sand here for this little tank. So what I'm going to use is my little JBL ProScape tool there, which they kindly gave me a while ago when we did the bench tank, and just scatter that about. Now the scaping side of things is entirely a personal choice, okay, but one of the oldest tricks in the book with scaping is having it higher at the back, coming forwards like that, or higher in the corners, coming down, higher in the corners, coming down. That'll give you that illusion, okay, of a little valley going up the middle. I'm just going to play this one by ear as I'm going along. I'm going to think about what I'm going to use and what I've got, what we can find very easily. Obviously we're going to have to buy some bits for this little build. We can't have it all for free, but it's not going to be stupid money like some of these aquascapes that they do. They're absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you can get such an amazing, I've built some amazing aquascapes over the years for minimal cost, and I find, I mean, it's not everybody's cup of tea when, you know, if you've got a bit more money than your average person, you can go out and you can buy all the latest equipment. That's fair enough, you know, hats off to them people. But I'm the sort of guy who likes to go out, make it work cheaply as I can to the best I can. Now I've created some amazing aquascapes over the years, whether it be coral reef scapes or whether it be freshwater scapes, Amazon scapes, blackwater scapes, you name it, I've done it, and people have come around and they said, my God, that must have cost you a fortune to do all that. And when I say now it was the best part of maybe 150 quid, 150 pound, they can't believe it. They say, well, how did you do that? And I take them through it and they're like, wow, absolutely unreal. But that's what I'm trying to get through to people. It's not this, there's so many things out there to catch you out, like some of these different pumps and some of these power heads and different things that you can buy, certain makes. I won't get into names and brands and all that kind of stuff, but they, you know, they work very well. Wattage is good on some of the higher end stuff, but if you just want to build a little tank like this, just go for as cheap as you can or as much as you can afford to put in there, and you'll have a good head start. If it's your first tank, don't go mad spending hundreds of pounds, because you might not get on with it. It may not work for you, and you'll never really get your money back, okay, for what you spend out on a tank. to what you're going to get back for it later on, believe me. I've been down that road before, and it can really sting your pocket sometimes. So don't go mad. Take your time, add bits slowly, and then you can place rocks in various places. I'm going to go for quite a high back on this one, I think. And we're going to have a nice little glide away to the front. Chuck a bit more in there. And then drag some up again. You can see that condensation there forming on the tank already. We're just going to do a little funky aquascaping here, I think. Something that I think anyone can really achieve. Good place to pick up second-hand aquariums, obviously eBay. In the US, I don't know if it's called Craigslist or something along them lines that you guys can you can get. There's all different free ads as well. Have a look through the free ads. And already you see you've got that sense of depth already, that little rise there, and you put bigger things at the back and work your way smaller to the front, and it'll give you that illusion of depth. The tank's only 9 inches wide. So we can see what we can achieve with that small tank. And we haven't put any of the rocks in as yet. And don't forget guys, with those stones, if you wanted to break them up, you could be careful and hit them with a hammer as well and make them a bit smaller. Bit of leaf in there, look at that. And the good thing is with sand as well guys, is plants grow amazingly well in it as well. Okay, it gets a nice root hold, and there is loads and loads of minerals in the sand, in riverbed sand, and your plants will really get a good root hold in there, and it will feed them for a long time as well. I always keep a little water bottle as well guys, just on the side there, so you can always rinse the glass off like that as you go in, and keep that sand if you do get any on the glass. This is tank water I'm using. You can use normal RO water, you can use dechlorinated tap water if you like in your little spray. That's not going to do you any harm. And now we've got to put the stones in. Now we've got to work out now how we want these stones to look, where we want them to go, and like I said, that is a real personal choice, but I tend to just put the stones in, try not to smash the glass. Now why I've chosen to put that one, what I want to do with this tank guys is I want to try and give it the illusion of, I'm going to put some more substrate at the back, okay, with this one. So I'm going to have that stone in that corner. That stone in that corner like that. And that's given us already a natural centre for the for that little valley as it were. Then we get some more of our sand, and we can pop some more sand behind these little rocks as well, and then work them in. Make sure you pat that down well. You can put some little plants in the top here as well. And then you can just start moving your substrate about. Packing it in into areas where you want it to go. Just like that. And already you've got a little, it's not going to look much at the moment because obviously it's just rocks and sand, but it's just, you can see you're just trying to build up different levels like you'd see in nature. One thing to bear in mind, okay guys, you're going to put a sponge filter in here. So what I tend to do is I put the sponge filters right in the back here. I'm going to put a double one in here. So I'm going to have two sponges coming up the back. But what I'm going to try and do, I think, is I'm going to get a couple of trees. I'm going to have a tree this side and a tree that side, which will make, I've got loads of the old subwater tang left and different little things around the place which I can use. Obviously you can use Java moss and stuff of that nature, but we'll get all that in there as well. And you've got to leave room and depth for your filter, see? So I know the sponge filters are around. Well, there's an old leg of a sponge filter there, and that'll fit on there. So if you can imagine there, that's one sponge filter, and you're going to have one the other side as well, okay, sliding on there. So that's going to be in there. Now what I want to try and do is get the trees to come up on an angle that way, and maybe an angle that way, and maybe a bit of the canopy will be here and here, and that's going to hide those sponge filters, okay. But then we're going to have the return pipe is going to be coming straight down the middle of the tank, which is going to blow water that way and blow water that way, and that's going to give us a nice even flow throughout the tank, okay. Give us a nice circular motion, nice and slow airflow up it. We'll get all into that good stuff as and when we get there. But obviously now, if you've got, you can sink it in with a bit of water as well. Righty ho. So we got that far now. Don't worry about all the front and the way it is at the moment. Now's the time if you've got any smaller stones. I can always add these later on, but we're just going to get, like I said, tank decor is something which is very, very personal. So we're just going to make this very, very simple, and we'll stick a couple of trees in there and different things, and we'll go from there. I've got some other little bits around which we can use as well. But I think what we'll do now is, we've got it this far, I think we'll go for a little walk around in the woods, and we'll find some we'll find a couple of nice little sticks that we can put and glue some of this plant on, some of the old subwater tang on, or any Java moss if I've got any left, and we can make a couple of trees, and we can get it set up today on this episode, filter running slowly, well, aquascaped as it were, and all ready. So let's go for a mooch around in the woods, I think. Right, okay guys, I just went all the way out in the woods and left my camera in the house. Silly boy. But here we've got a lovely piece of dead hedgerow. And what I think this was is a bit of old privet hedge, which has been cut back for years and years and years from the tractor mowers, okay, around the country paths. And what you can get off of them around the top is little bits like that, and they make absolutely superb little bonsai trees. Now I'm going to try and get one for this side. If you look, imagine that is the tank, okay, your TV screen, one coming in from this side, and we're going to have the stones and everything coming through on the middle there. So I'm going to cut myself another one of these. As you can see, they mimic the trunks. You've got the branches at the top, and then we can paste that all over the top with some of that subwater tang we've got to make it look like a lovely green canopy. And your shrimps are going to absolutely love going up into there, creeping around, okay, and finding little bits and bobs to eat. Okay, so we got some beautiful little bits there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause you for a second, and I'm going to go and cut another piece off. But before I do that, make sure when you do get any wood or anything, make sure it's off the beaten track. Okay, and don't forget, we've got to boil this as well. I'm going to put that in a pot of boiling water, boil it for about 5 minutes. That will make it go soft. That'll kill any bacteria and bugs that are on it or in it. Okay, let it dry. So I'm going to go and do all that and let it steam dry, and once it's done, we can put it back in there and we can put a little bit of shape into this tank then. Right, I've just cut the two that I want, that one and that one. They're going to go one each way. Sponge filters at the back, the blower and the return is going to come out through the middle there. Okay, so now I'm going to shoot off. I'm going to quickly put these in a pan of water, boil them up for a couple of minutes, let them steam dry, and then I'll get back to you. Okay. Right guys, what I've done is, while I've been away, I've boiled up the sticks. There. They've dried again now, steam dried. I've put the heater in the corner. Okay, just put that in. It can go a little bit into the substrate if you need to get it in there. Don't worry about that too much. And I've added a double sponge filter, one each side, as you can see there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the light over to the back a minute. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add these little bits of wood. And we're just going to get them in a place where we're happy they're going to look the best. You might have to move the stones around a bit. You can always push the stone back. So we got a little piece of wood. I don't know if it will look better actually with this light off. Might show it up a bit better. There you go. Obviously this is a cheap tank. If I was going to make one before, I know a lot of you guys said about trickle filters and things, Matten filters, different things you can use. But this is the simplest, straightforward way that you can do this. Okay, and it works, believe it or not, just as well. Now you've got, when you put your trees in, obviously make sure that you can get your sponge filter out again. Okay, you haven't got to remove the whole sponge filter, guys. When you've got them in, you can literally just slide those off, pump them out as and when you need to, slide them back down again. Okay, but you don't want to be able to remove the trees, stones, things like that. Now when we get, over time, that subwatertang or the Java moss or whatever you're going to coat the tops of the trees with, okay, is going to really thicken up and hide that filter in the long run. Okay, over time. So if we move that forward there, you can see a little bit better with the light now on the top what we've achieved. Those branches, I've already set that tank apart and hidden that filter a bit. And when we put that, like I said, you put the plants on, it's going to cover it up even more. Always leave access for your heater, like I said, your sponges and everything else. You can see now the sand is slowly, the water sunk through the sand, and we've got a little bit on the bottom here now which is a bit cloudy. You're always going to get that. When we fill it up, we're going to have to drain it down, fill it up, drain it down. Do that a couple of times, really get rid of as much of that rubbish as we can. But just do that with some dechlorinated tap water, or basically you can do it with just straight tap water, to be honest. If you're just pushing it in, filling it up, dropping it down again, getting rid of that. But then obviously add it very, very slowly the next time, either on a saucer in there or on the stone, but very, very carefully. Now that is a brand new filter, okay, not cycled. I've taken that, it's not brand new, it's been not used for a while, but I've just rinsed it through, that's why it looks wet. I pumped it out, and we're going to have to cycle this tank as well. That's when all the good stuff happens, all the algae starts and all that stuff. So that's the plan. So that's looking quite good so far. It's a quick little tank. It's not going to be masses of work going into this, but it's going to look quite good when it's done. It'll have a nice effect, which I think you guys are going to enjoy if you try something very, very similar. So now all we've got to do is basically get in there with super glue. This is what I tend to do. Put blobs of super glue on the tops of the branches, and then you can just squeeze that subwatertang, which I've got here. Don't need loads of it, I mean, I've obviously got tons of it in my room because this stuff's growing all the time. You can pick this stuff up from eBay, different places. I've found it before. You don't often see it in garden centre shops, aquatic shops. I rarely see it in there. But you can also use Java moss, which is very good and grows very well and needs low light to grow. This needs low light to grow as well. Too much light doesn't tend to work as well. It goes a bit lighter, more yellowy. Okay, it doesn't like strong light like Java moss stuff. We want to keep this down, keep it obviously cost effective. That's the main thing. Keep the costs right down, budget as it is, and Java moss is a good way to go. It grows well, no CO2's needed, and a low light, and it will grow really nice, and maybe a bit more leggy. The higher the light, the more dense it will grow. So it's up to you what lamp you put on there. You've seen my videos in the past where I put different things in, and the way they look. But this is where we're going. You don't have to put those in. You can use a couple of Anubias. They're fantastic low light plants. You could have an Anubias in the back there and one there, bigger one there, smaller one there. Like I say, it's all down to you guys what you want to put into your tank. Okay, well, we're going to glue some bits on now and get this looking a bit smarter. Right, super glue, that's what I use the old Gorilla Glue, and I'm just going to literally go in there and I'm going to dab that and give it a good old squeeze on all these little points. Got a little bubble on each one. You don't need masses of this stuff, guys, for it to stick to. Okay, just want to get it adhered to it so it doesn't run away. And don't worry about it if it's wet, your weed's wet, because it will help it stick to it. Okay, and then you basically get a blob of it, roll it up, is what I do. I just roll it up. I'll put that workshop light on again. I just roll it up into a little ball like so. You're going to get bits that fall off, don't worry about this, and then just literally stick it on like that. The bits that fall off, when you fill it with water, more's going to come off as well, so don't worry about that, because you can just literally take it off the surface and just push it down in amongst. You can trim it up later on when it starts to grow, but at the moment we just need a little foothold to get a little canopy going, and we'll go from there. Already you can see it's starting to look like something. Got another little piece down the bottom here, I think. Another little blob on there. And a little blob to stick on there like that. And then we can get that tree effect, which looks pretty dandy. And then we do the same on this side. Just leave little like cobwebs of it between each branch. Completely safe to use, guys, this is. I've been using super glue. For years and years and years. And it's surprising what an effect you can get very cheaply. I don't have to go to these places and spend an absolute arm and a leg to get something which Mother Nature is already provided for you. And as soon as that glue touches this wet weed, it'll bond to it very, very quickly. Just squeeze out the water from it, like that would be. Just squeeze that out all over your workshop floor. Keep it in a little ball, and then just plop it in, and then just repeat that process. and push that down over the plants. You're going to get a bit stuck to your fingers as well, be careful about that. You can always trim these things back later on. But as you can see already there, that's starting to look nice for free. Not bad at all. We've got a little bit more I've got to get out of one of my tanks now. I could use a little bit more down on this side here to build that canopy up a little bit more. And then we'll, I think we might fill it up with some water. Right, there you go guys, I just put a little bit more on there. I think that looks quite dandy so far, not bad at all. We're going to have a few bits float off like I said. So basically now what we've got our substrate, we've got our stones, we've got our little bonsai trees, we've got our filter, our heater, our lamp, and that is the whole system. That's all we need now to get these shrimps in. All we need now to do is fill it up with water, settle the sand in around the stones, and obviously remove any of the plant, or tuck it in with your tweezers again in amongst the branches. All this subwasser tank needs is to be pushed in, okay, with the tweezers, because the shrimp aren't going to really move things around. Your flow from the pump's going to be minimal, so it's going to give this time, and it will stick and grow onto the actual sticks itself given time, okay, but it's got to be very, very gentle flow in there. So I think what we should do now is get my hose pipe, wherever I can find that, through my carbon block filter. Right, there you go. Now I've got a big carbon block filter underneath my bench, okay, which is carbon stuffed into a big tube which takes the chlorines and chloramines out of the water, okay. Now I'm just going to keep topping up with that and sucking it out, up again, down again, until we get some clarity in the tank, right. So that's what I'm going to do first. Now for you guys who haven't got that, just use your normal regular tap water through a hose pipe. Fill it up slowly as you can. As you can notice there, I've put the actual opening to the pipe on top of the sponge filter itself, okay. Now what that's going to do is dribble through the sponge onto that sand, and it's going to weep its way through the sand super slowly and then rise up really slowly, okay. And that way it's not going to be sploshing in and making a right mess of things, because that's what we don't want. We want to get this in really, really slowly. So I'll turn it on. I think that's coming out. No, it's not. Right, now it's coming out. Now you're going to get some sand movement because it's very fine, but don't panic about that. You're going to get that scum on the surface as well. Also, don't worry about that either. We're just going to slowly fill this up over time. The sand is going to sink down, the trees might move, the stones will sink in and level in, and that suction will settle in everything into the sand, okay. So don't worry about anything at this point in time. It's only a 24 litre tank, so it's not going to take long to fill, as you can see. And then we're going to rinse it out a few times, up and down, like I said. Pardon me. After we've done that, then we will give it the initial that proper fill then with dechlorinated water, okay. Make sure it's dechlorinated water. And not tap water, because you don't want that chlorine in there and those chloramines in there, because they're no good for anything at all. And then once it's all up, you can get your little tongs in there, we can move things around. I'll do all that in a minute. Right, what I'm going to do now to save on time is, like I said, I'm going to purge this tank out a few times, and then I'm going to get back to you when it's had its proper fill to the top, and then we'll switch all the gear on, okay. Right guys, there you go. We've got the water in, it's been up and down a few times, and got rid of most of the cloudy stuff. You're never going to get rid of all of it on a first go, but the sponge filters will take it out overnight. It'll be crystal clear in the morning. Now then, what we got to look at is water parameters now. I've turned the sponge filter on. As you can see, we've got the bubbles there coming out just on the top there, and you can see those particles moving around in the water, which is a good sign we're getting a nice little flow going around the tank. Nice and gentle. You don't want too much of a flow with shrimp, just a nice steady roll is just what you want. Heater's on, set that for 22 degrees. I like to keep shrimp around 22. I find they breed well then, and it doesn't speed them up too much, because you know, some people say, you know, higher temperature they'll breed more, which is true, but then it chops their life down, and we don't really want that. We just want a nice little steady little breeding project going on to see our shrimps breed nicely and slowly and build up a nice little population over time. That's what we're looking at. TDS wise, I buy these little things off eBay. They're super cheap. Don't know what they are now. I think they're about maybe 10 to 15 pound each, but they're brilliant. They tell you the temperature and your pH, your TDS as well. So you just basically switch that on, stick that in the water. We get a very low TDS here in Wales. Then you can press hold, and we've got 60. We've got a TDS of 60. That's a total dissolved solids. That's the minerals that are dissolved in the water. Okay, we've got a TDS of 60, which is okay for Neocaridina shrimp. That's what it is straight away. Now don't forget, we've got sand in there, which is going to affect it. We've got the stone in there, which is going to affect it as well. The pH is 7.2. It's just come taps here in Wales. That's why I get the same little TDS meter. I get the same little pH meter as well, you see. So we can turn that on, pop that in there, and that's showing actually 7.5, but obviously with the sand and everything in there now, it's changing. As you can see there, it's going down again now, but it was 7.5. This one hasn't got a hold function on it, where the TDS meter, you can press hold and it will hold the reading that you had on there. So there we go. We've got a TDS of 60 at 7.2 pH. Okay, which is going to be fine. We've got to let that temperature build up now. So you can just give it a good old clean up. It's all looking dandy at the moment. Now what you can do while this thing starts to cycle now is you can cover the back with black. If I turn the workshop light off, I'm always doing that on this series, on these different videos. It's just going to mimic what it's going to be like with a darker background. Okay, if you put a black background on there, everything's going to show up a lot better. Okay, you're going to cut the light coming in from the sides. If you've got, you know, obviously a lit room, you can keep it all down, or an office somewhere, you can always put some black. I use Plasti Dip, which is a rubberized spray which you can spray on. You can get it for cars, wheels, that sort of stuff. Okay, obviously that's all got to be done first. Or you can use this stuff here, which I use, which is it's a ground covering stuff that stops weeds growing in your garden. And I've got that around the breeding tanks in here, and it's basically like a cloth, but it's nice and dark, and you can tape it to the edges, run it around the back, and cut the light out that way. So it'll give you, it'll make that tank, stop the light getting in from other angles. That's what I'm trying to say. But it's not looking too bad at the moment. I've got all sorts up there. There's bits of Java moss in amongst it, and given time now, that's all going to settle in. But now we've got to wait now, and now's the time. It's going to have to cycle. Now we've got something nice to look at. I know we haven't got the shrimps in there yet. That's not going to be for some time, because it's a freshly cycling tank. But what I tend to do at this stage is get a little bit of shrimp, dead shrimp, that you'd put in your sandwiches, okay, and drop that in there. Now what's that's going to do is start that nitrogen cycle off. Okay, you haven't got to buy all these fancy additives and bacteria powders and all this kind of stuff. Waste of money. Don't worry about all that. All you need is a bit of dead prawn, something that's going to rot, even some fish food. Add some fish food to the tank with nothing in it. I'm going to go and grab a piece of shrimp now, and I'll be back in a sec. Right, I've gone and got my little bit of mussel. Actually, I've run out of shrimp. The mussel's fine. A little bit of mussel like that. Okay, bung him in. Let him sink to the bottom there, and now we're going to watch that over time. Okay, and that's going to slowly start to rot in that water. Okay, which is then going to start that nitrogen cycle off. It's going to create ammonia in the water, perhaps here in Wales, That's why I get the same little TDS meter. I get the same little pH meter as well, you see. So we can turn that on, pop that in there, and that's showing actually 7.5, but obviously with the sand and everything in there now, it's changing. As you can see there, it's going down again now, but it was 7.5. This one hasn't got a hold function on it, where the TDS meter, you can press hold and it will hold the reading that you had on there. So there we go, we got a TDS of 60 at 7.2 pH, okay, which is going to be fine. We've got to let that temperature build up now. You can just give it a good old clean up. It's all looking dandy at the moment. Now what you can do while this thing starts to cycle now is you can cover the back with black. If I turn the workshop light off, I'm always doing that on this series, on these different videos. It's just going to mimic what it's going to be like with a darker background, okay? If you put a background on there, everything's going to show up a lot better, okay? You're going to cut the light coming in from the sides. If you've got, you know, obviously a lit room, you can keep it all down, or an office somewhere, you can always put some black. I use Plasti Dip, which is a rubberized spray which you can spray on. You can get it for cars, wheels, that sort of stuff, okay? Obviously that's all got to be done first. Or you can use this stuff here, which I use, which is it's a ground covering stuff that stops weeds growing in your garden. And I've got that around the breeding tanks in here, and it's basically like a cloth, but it's nice and dark, and you can tape it to the edges, run it around the back, and cut the light out that way. So it'll give you, it'll make that tank, stop the light getting in from other angles. That's what I'm trying to say. But it's not looking too bad at the moment. I've got all sorts up there. There's bits of Java moss in amongst it, and given time now, that's all going to settle in. But now we've got to wait now, and now's the time. It's going to have to cycle. Now we've got something nice to look at. I know we haven't got the shrimps in there yet. That's not going to be for some time because it's a freshly cycling tank. But what I tend to do at this stage is get a little bit of shrimp, dead shrimp, that you'd put in your sandwiches, okay, and drop that in there. Now what's that's going to do is start that nitrogen cycle off, okay? You haven't got to buy all these fancy additives and bacteria powders and all this kind of stuff. Waste of money, don't worry about all that. All you need is a bit of dead prawn, something that's going to rot, even some fish food. Add some fish food to the tank with nothing in it. I'm going to go and grab a piece of shrimp now, and I'll be back in a sec. Right, I've gone and got my little bit of mussel actually. I've run out of shrimp. The mussel's fine. A little bit of mussel like that, okay. Bung him in. Let him sink to the bottom there. And now we're going to watch that over time, okay. And that's going to slowly start to rot in that water, okay, which is then going to start that nitrogen cycle off. We're going to start cycling this tank out. It's going to go all through a different manner of conditions now. You're going to get a lot of algae in there, which is good stuff. We want all that. We want the algae to grow. Algae's not our enemy. With a shrimp tank, it's our friend. We want it in there. We want to get that biofilm growing, okay, and that is all going to grow. You're going to find the wood might start growing furry bits off it, but we're going to do it as time goes on. I'm not going to do anything to it. We're going to leave it as it is, and just slowly do it day by day. Then we'll get into the water tests, and we're going to go from there as well. May have to alter the parameters a bit, but we're going to go from, we'll go through those stages as we come to them, okay. But don't panic about it. At the moment we got a set up tank, we got heat, we got filtration on the go, we got some aquascaping done, and it's not looking too bad so far. I'm going to keep the bottom open. I may put some little tiny bits of dwarf sage in here later on, stick them into the sand, but at the moment we're just going to leave it as it is, and we're going to go from there. Right guys, what I've just decided to do, actually I've got a load of dwarf sage in Jackson's tank, so I've just taken some out, and I thought I'd just pop a few in the substrate while I'm here. That's the little guys we're going to be using. You'll see it better when it goes in the tank. You can trim back the root systems if you like, but I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to tuck that in there, slowly move that about, and then lift it out, okay, and that will those little plants will suck their way in and that sand will seal them in. Don't worry about it if they go a bit deep, they'll find their way out again very quickly. Then they start putting their runners out. Plant them exactly where you want them to go. Well, I love sand because it does suck those plants in lovely. It really does. Just drag them around and those little roots will find their way in. Open your tweezers slowly and then just tease any little roots in, or press them under like that. Okay, a few more to go. And this will all fill in with time. I say I'm doing it speedy quick now, but it's just to show you guys how easy you can create something which looks nice and you don't have to spend a lot of money on doing it. eBay's a fantastic place to find plants, nice and cheap. Lots of little companies out there, lots of people out there actually who grow them themselves. They got their little, they do them in like a gel, which is a really good way to do it if you don't want to have any snails in your tank, because they're all in vitro, they're grown in this gel and under lighting, so basically the gel is the substrate with the food in it. So when you get it, you just got to rinse the gel off the roots and then plant it into your tank, and then you've got no chance of snails. I don't mind snails in a tank because they're super easy to get out. You just chuck a bit of cucumber in there and they'll be all over it in an afternoon, in a couple of hours, sorry, and then you just pull a bit of cucumber out with them all on and you can get them out that way. It's very easy, so don't go buying silly snail traps from the shop when you don't have to, when it's super easy to catch them that way instead. Oh, there's a bit of dwarf hairgrass there. I'll put that in as well. But there you go, we got a little start of a tank there now. It's not looking too bad for a couple of hours work, which has always taken me really, doing all the filming, going down to the river banks, picking all this stuff up. Obviously I've got the plants and the tank and the heater and the filter, but that's all you're going to have to fork out for is a cheap little tank. That's 24 litres, that is. 100 watt heater, double sponge filter, everything in there is free, and we're away. So I'll get back to you guys when it starts to cycle through. You're gonna have to leave this now for a week to 2 weeks, okay? I'm gonna keep doing little, every week we're gonna do a little update on this tank now. It's either gonna be on a Sunday, oh sorry, on a Wednesday or a Sunday. So I'll do up a little, hopefully I'll get this out today. Takes a while to edit these things, to get it all right, but hopefully I'll get it out today and we can do weekly updates on it then, and I can show you how to do all the tests, make sure everything's going okay, the water change side of things, and get it cycled nicely and ready for our little shrimps. Anyway guys, I hope you like part 1 of how to do a super cheap shrimp tank, and as always you're all stars, love you loads. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the old subscribe button and the notification bell for new videos, and you're not going to miss any updates that way. And I'll see you on the next episode of Mark's Aquatics. Take care and bye for now. Oh, it's looking good.
Just me and my guitar.